Please, 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 I'm begging you. Please, I'm desperate. I don't know what to do. Please subscribe.
Their names were Ronnie and Reggie. They were twins, and as they grew, they came to understand the power of fear. They were the Krays, and their story is terrifying, because it is true.
From early childhood, the identical twins were bound by bitter rivalry and fierce devotion. Their conviction for assaulting a policeman ended their mother's hopes for a boxing career for her sons. Their family believed it was fate that turned them into heavyweight gangsters.
You see, that's where it all began from when they was children, really. I mean, when it was boxing, they were very, very good. They won everything. People thought if I could beat Reggie and Ronnie, even when they were children, then we'll have a name. And they never did win. So they kept winning, and as they got older, the same thing happened. People wanted to put the twins back on the floor. And so as it went on, it got worse, obviously, the violence, and they kept winning. And that's how it all began. They wasn't looking around to be Jack the Lads or be villains. It happened.
Ronnie and Reggie grew up in the post-war East End with its tradition of street violence and strong sense of community. The twins used both to increase their power. They bought their mum a local pub. The Krays worked hard to appear as local boys made good, but they were murderers and extortionists. They made sure cameras were on hand to help them gloss over the dark side of their activities. The twins killed people in cold blood, but the images that remain in the public's mind are of Ronnie and Reggie giving money to charity, of Reggie posing with the stars, of Ronnie hobnobbing with politicians like Lord Boothby, and the twins immortalised by the fashionable photographer David Bailey. But in the underworld, the twins were known for what they were, and as in their early boxing days, their reputation preceded them.
Obviously, once you start getting a reputation, I mean, you stand on Bow Corner, you got a reputation as a game boy. So you get someone down from Roman Road crowd, or Stratford, or Poplar, and you have a battle there, or you go and visit Mile End, or whatever, same thing. To be told that their twins were taking over was a sort of, wow, something to be proud of. You know. It could have gone either way. I went the wrong way.
Big Albert Donahue joined the firm after one of the twins shot him in the back of the leg. This was after the Krays had branded a friend of Albert's on the face with an electric poker. It was a punishment for some perceived slight against the twins, and when Albert dared to speak his mind, he became their next target.
Jewish guy, so he's got a blue chin anyway, and he hasn't shaved because he's got these, he's been branded with electric poker, you know, the wire lighter things. And we were trying to get it out of him who done it, but he wouldn't say who done it. So in the end I got fed up with him. I said, well, if somebody done that to me, I'd blow their head off. And that was it. I walked away. If I'd known it was Ronnie, I wouldn't have changed my mind, but I'd changed my mouth. You know, I wouldn't have said it. As soon as I walked in the pub, someone said, here he is. And everything sort of hushed. You know. I stood at the bar, got a bottle of light ale, and in them days you always kept the bottle because it's an innocent weapon. And I felt these people drifting away from me, you know, and I thought, oh shit, it's off now. Then bang! I turned round, and there's the other guy going like that with an automatic pistol.
Albert refused to tell the police which twin had shot him. This made him worthy of joining their firm.
And they said that when your leg's better, come and work with us.
In the meantime, we put you on a pension. I think it's 15 quid a week pension, which was, I suppose at the time, near enough average week's wages. So that was it.
That was the moment you were on the phone?
Yeah, signed up.
Albert Donahue became a soldier at Fort Valence, the nickname for the Krays family home at number 178. Like much of the East End, it's now been demolished, but even in its notorious heyday, it hardly resembled the fortress of Ronnie's fantasies. Here, he and his brother held court and presided over the firm's board meetings. From the front room of the 2 Up, 2 Down, they ran a criminal empire. The first time he set eyes on Ronnie, it was obvious to the policeman who was eventually to jail the twins that he was playing the part of an American gangster.
It was a summer's evening, and I realised that a car had drawn up immediately outside the door and looked outside. It's a big American-type car, and a guy stepped out of the car, put with his hand in his pocket, as though he had a gun in his pocket, and he sort of swept the street, looking up and down and making sure that there was no one in sight, and then gave a signal, and the back door opened, and out stepped Ronnie Kray. And I was amazed because he was dressed for all the world like a 1930s Chicago gangster. He had a long cashmere coat that reached to his ankles, tied in a loose belt at the waist. His hair was greased and parted, and he wore his glasses. And then he swept across the pavement and into the pub, and he looked to me like Al Capone without his fedora.
When you talk about fear, what is fear? It's an imagination of something. That's what fear is. I've seen frightened people, yeah. I mean, we've all done it. Every one of us has terrified someone in some way. But I think we saw it as a way of like, earn a living. I mean, you can go and go to a lawyer, for example, to solve a problem. But if you went to someone like the twins, their word was enough. I mean, the problem ended. It's proved time and time again. Their name was enough. They didn't need a firm. There was a firm, and the two of them on their own. They never needed a firm. But you see, the twins had to live up to this reputation. Bear that in mind. And what I mean by that is, what people want them to be, they had to be, I suppose, if I look back on it that way. So they had to be good at whatever they'd done. And believe me, they were good. The best I ever saw.
Well, I was known as Reggie's man. I mean, he didn't use words like minder, bodyguard, that sort of thing. Just, I was Reggie's man.
And did you have lots of money in your pocket?
Well, apart from the twins' pension, if you did any business with them, if you actually went on a bit of business and there was money involved, you got a slice of that. Plus I could eat and drink for nothing, and I could get my clothes made to measure next to nothing. If you needed a car, you just went to a car site and frightened the governor and pulled one off the front for a couple of weeks and run it into the ground. Hardly any expenses. I was then put in charge of collecting the weekly payments from different clubs and places. And from that I would pay out the pensions. I'd be told who to pay. And if somebody was out of favour, they wouldn't get paid that week, you know.
Protection was one of the firm's main sources of income. People paid up because they were afraid. The twins couldn't afford to let their reputation for violence slip. That reputation usually ensured that their victims didn't complain to the law. Detective Inspector Nipper Reed had to sit back and wait for witnesses who would dare to speak out against the gangsters.
There's no question about what prevented witnesses giving evidence to suggest that the Krays were involved, and that was terror. Just absolute fear and terror, because the Krays generated that by their threats, by intimidation, and by their violence. People were openly saying, they won't be in long, they'll get away with it, they'll get out. And so it happened. This gave them even more confidence, even more arrogance, even more certainty that they were the kings of the underworld in the East End, and that nothing could change that.
In the East End, the twins' victory over the law only increased their power to dispense their own vicious brand of justice.
You knew if you were doing wrong, and you knew if it warranted some sort of comeback. So you were expecting it. And I know cases where people were upset when they didn't get seen to. because it made them feel small, insignificant, you know. Scarf, chip mark, they would wear them with pride, you know. Look at me, I've got a cut. It was a sign that you were a tough guy.
The media loves the Krays. They've made more money selling their story from prison than they ever made as gangsters. In the razzmatazz that surrounds the twins to this day, their cold-blooded murders have been sanitised. People who were children during the Krays' reign of terror campaigned for their release. Back in the 60s, once the twins' violence had escalated to murder, hardened members of the firm realised they were completely out of control. They might even turn against their own.
The twins wouldn't send a stranger to get you, because they know you'd either do the stranger or you wouldn't show. So the person who's going to come for you is your partner. So we had a little arrangement that if he used my first name, Albert, that's a warning, and vice versa. You know. Which, like to anyone accompanying them, if he knocked at my door and said, "It's only me, Albert," no problem. Don't sound like a signal, but it is. You know. And that way I'd come flying out the window with a shooter in my hand or something. You know.
As the instinct for self-preservation took over, the firm's main men considered murdering the twins.
When something would happen, it would be, we could have done that fat bastard last night. You know. We used to call them Gert and Daisy, the two, Reggie and Ronnie. You know. But Ronnie was vulnerable because when we're going somewhere in the car, he had to sit in the passenger seat. The people with Ronnie, just sitting behind him, just take him through the tunnel and boom, he's gone. Yeah. Chuck him out the other side or take him somewhere and bury him, burn him. Well, the problem, as we saw it, was not the twins, it was after that. If we want to carry on, we've got to build up a new fear. Plus we've got to handle a very likely arrest for the actual murder of the twins. But they were definitely as much on the list as we were.
Detective Inspector Nipper Reed based the Kray investigation at Tintagel House, south of the Thames near Vauxhall, well away from Scotland Yard where the twins were rumoured to have friends. This tremendous power to terrify was the Kray twins' greatest weapon.
Ronnie just had to glare at some people when they'd shit themselves. That was one of his favourite tricks. He would sit in a pub or a club where we were, and people would be brought in for various reasons, and he could just sit there and stare at this person for half an hour, and that person he hasn't said a word to him, but that person's gone away and thoroughly cowed, you know. He'd been told off without a word. That was how much fear they generated.
Men who could casually dismiss murder were recruited by the twins and moulded into a firm that could swing into action and cover up the evidence of their crimes. Those close to Reggie knew his twin had been pressurising him to commit murder.
Christ, I couldn't understand it. The guy had never done him any harm, you know what I mean? He was just a hill popper, ladies' man, life and soul of the party. I know it was just Reggie's answer to Ronnie's Cornell. When Ronnie got drunk and he was heavy on his pills, he would be screaming at him, "You cowardly bastard, I've done mine, now it's time you skinny slag, it's about time you done yours." You know. Simple as that. There's no secret about that at all. You ain't got the guts. You know.
Exactly 1 year after the murder of Jack the Hat, the Kray twins were arrested after a night out at the Astor Club. Armed police broke down the door of the council flat where they still lived with their mum. A total of 26 people were arrested as the police rounded up the firm. They had believed they were untouchable, but their power depended on fear, and now there was no one left to enforce it. One by one, witnesses came forward to testify against the Krays. Ronnie boasted that if he hadn't been in court, he'd probably have been with Judy Garland. But his days of mingling with celebrities were over. For murdering Cornell and McVitie, the twins got life with a 30-year recommendation.
It was a reflection of what the judge felt was the right penalty for the crimes that they committed. I think he saw them for what they were, as arrogant, dictatorial leaders of a gang that had warped the society of the East End, committed brazen and quite gratuitous murders without regard to the lives and the considerations of other people, and they terrorised the whole of an area of London.
The sentences for the 10 members of the firm totalled 159 years.
Their arrogance is still apparent. They've both written 2 books. There is not one sign of repentance or remorse. In fact, they both savour the fact. Ronnie Kray talks about the delight that he still enjoys at remembering how he shot Cornell. Reggie Kray says he's no regrets about having stabbed to death poor Jack McVitie. So there was no question of any remorse. There was no feeling that, yes, we were wrong, we were bad, we were evil. They've never said that.
For the twins and their supporters, there's still too much at stake to admit that they were wrong. If they deny their past, they'll have nothing left. Tony Lambriano is still on licence for the murder of Jack the Hat. He's proud of the fact that he never grasped, even though it meant 15 years in jail.
I was a villain, I was a criminal. So I'm not going to stand and point the finger or blame anyone for my downfall. The choice was mine. And at least I can stand and look in the mirror and say, I never point the finger or put them away in any way whatsoever. I can live with it. That's not what I'm about. And if anything you can come out of with pride with, that is something that I never put them where they are today, or any of the other men involved.
But the twins had no more respect for the code of the underworld than they have for the laws of straight society. On remand in Brixton, they ordered other members of the firm to take the rap for their murders.
Ronnie turns to me, he said, don't worry about the case, he said. What we're going to do, not would you mind, what we're going to do, we want you to take Frank Mitchell. I said, no. Oh, he said, and we'll take all the frauds and violence. Shit, you can get out of that, just frighten a few people, they don't give evidence. So I said, no. And now I get the benefit of the eyes. Now, that's it, I know, I've crossed the line now. I'm now an enemy.
Donahue wasn't prepared to do time for a crime he had not committed. He told the police everything about the murder of Frank Mitchell, but no one was convicted because the judge felt the evidence of a former member of the firm could not be trusted without corroboration.
Once we get to trial, when I start giving the evidence, then everybody stands back in amazement. Wow, look, here's this former member of the firm, he's spun right round and now he's Queen's evidence. They don't know anything about the reasons, they don't know why, and they say Supergrass. I think that was the birth of the phrase Supergrass. And that was it. They became Supergrass #1, I think. I ran it over 2 years. And this obviously set a lot of people thinking, wow. And a lot of them bought diaries after that, I think.
2 years for murder instead of life. The underworld got the message that being Supergrass paid off.
Well, it appears some of you have still yet to hit that subscribe button, so be prepared for Ronnie's cousin knocking on your door very soon.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.